your ultimate WordPress website checklist. My name is Courtney Ingle Robertson. I write over at CourtneyIngle.com, and my business address is simplelocalbusiness.com. So before I begin, I generally have a checklist of client sites that I go through of all the stuff that a client needs to have in their site, in their system. Oftentimes clients come to me, they have sites that are already started and they may or may not be WordPress. Sometimes they need to be sold on why should I move to WordPress. Other times they say, I have a WordPress website. It's got content, it's got a theme, it's got graphics. I'm great. I just need you to upgrade something. When I take a look under the hood, I find out they don't have Google Analytics. They don't have a lot of things that they don't know. So let's take a look at how to get the things that you don't know that you need done in your site. I usually work with my clients and say, I want to create a Gmail account shared with you. That way I'm not getting all your personal stuff, but that I could tie anything that I need to create and set up there. So if I'm creating it on your behalf, I tie it to that account. The reason that I do that is that I want my clients to ultimately have the control and just give me access to things. But they can't have the control if they don't know what they're doing to go create it in the first place. So it's a bit of a stretch to get that all working. But basically, I set up a Gmail account. I give them, here's your username, your password. And in that Gmail account, I also tell them, here's all the other login information that you have that is related to your business. The very next thing that I do is I go create a WordPress.com account for them. You might think, why WordPress.com? Well, because I'm going to integrate JetPack and Gravatar and Akismet. I integrate these other things that WordPress.com has available. And in order to get them all created and set up, I like to make sure that they're tied into that WordPress.com account. And again, that WordPress.com account tie back to Gmail. So the next thing, Gravatar. You see that on my screen, I've got a little black box that shows you, here's a hover card. If somebody hovers over, for instance, if I have this turned on, thanks to JetPack that you see there on the left-hand side, if I leave a comment on a website and I see that little profile picture show up or a company logo, that's tied to a Gravatar account. And when you hover over a Gravatar image, this little hover box shows up and people could traipse off and see all the other social media accounts that they have. So we set one of those up totally free. Then we go over to Akismet. Akismet, not totally free anymore. Akismet makes sure that you don't have spam on your website. It helps to eliminate spam comments and all kinds of rogue backlinks and trackbacks, and it just takes care of things. So go get an Akismet account. It is a fee. It is not a large fee. It is payable to Automatic. Automatic, the parent company of WordPress.com, keeps the spam out of your website. Get one. Next up, I look at basic accessibility. So a general user interface. Can we see all of the things that identify what the company is about? Can we see their logo, and do they have a tagline that doesn't say, just another WordPress website? Can we read the basics of their front page content in about 5 seconds? Can we find out all the information that we want? Does it have a favicon? Does it show in the top that they have not customized their favicon? That would be something like if they're hosting on HostMonster, or if they're using a Genesis theme, do we see an HM or a G up there instead of their logo or their profile picture? Have they made a custom 404 page? So if somebody clicks on a link and it's a broken link to some part of your website that maybe changed and you didn't redirect, or they think they know the link to the correct part of a page within your site, they type it and they get an error. Have you customized that 404 so that it helps them search for what they are looking for, or does it just throw an error message in the browser that doesn't even look like your website? Keep that in mind. Have they put in all the social media share options and an email opt-in? Can people get on your email newsletter list? A lot of businesses, this kind of thing actually is something that your most valuable customers will want to be on. Collect their email addresses even before you are ready to start mailing them. That way you've got it built when the time comes. Have they set up a contact form, and have they obfuscated their email? Are you just putting your email address out there as an actual link that somebody can click on and it calls up their email system? If so, then you are opening yourself wide open for lots of malicious robot attacks and spam, spam, spam. We don't need that. Put in a contact form. I like the one that's built into JetPack. That's a little bit better, where somebody has to fill in a form. But if you are going to put an email address in, if you can't get yourself away from, please have my email address, Then look for tools to obfuscate your email. There are plenty of them available. Navigation, think also, is it thumb friendly for on mobile? So is the main navigation easy to understand? Are the links all working? Do they go to where they need to go to? If you're writing a blog post, consider under the /blog that you've got categories. Maybe give links out to specific categories. Inside of content, is it well written? Is it clear? Do you understand what it's saying? Does it have words in it that the average person that you're trying to reach is searching for? Always good to think through. Is everything pretty concise? Do all of the links work? Are the HTML page titles clear and explanatory, or does it just say page 1, page 2, all of those types of things? And also take a look, if it matters, how this looks on print. Can it be printed correctly? Then you want to go and check the browsers. You need to have a check on at least Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and Internet Explorer. If you're like I am and you're on a Mac and you do not know what your IE version of your website looks like, get to a Windows computer, and if you don't have one in your house, go to the store and type it in on one of theirs and visit your website, see how it looks. Likewise, it's true if you are on an Internet Explorer only computer, as in Microsoft, and you want to go check your device on Safari. Get into the Apple Store or some other place that has an Apple laptop and check it. If not, you could still check things like browser shots. The site's been around for at least a decade. You can see what your website looks like on them. It is not fail-proof, but it's better than nothing, so check them out. Then you need to look at color contrasts. A great website for that is wave.webaim.org. That tells you if, for those that are colorblind or completely blind, if you've got a lot of the accessibility factors in that they need. Everything from your heading tags to the color contrast to what can somebody that's using screen reading software understand. So if they're using JAWS is a popular screen reading software, and JAWS wants to describe the image that you put on your website. If that image is labeled as img001.jpg, does that mean anything to somebody that's visually impaired as to what that image is? Probably not. You need to include things like alt text. So this is a great tool that will help you just assess what you have going on your site. Remember with links, that click here doesn't describe it adequately to screen reading machine software. If Siri's talking at you and says click here, you may understand that means click here, but you may not understand where is it taking me. So in the title of a link, when you go to fill a link in, please put in the words that you are taking somebody to. Describe the page in the title part. Then you want to also, if you're leaving your domain, make sure you check that little tick mark that says open in a new window or tab. A great resource for this is Structured Links, and that is on web3.org's website. You can learn all kinds of things about how to make your links work. Then, similar to that, if you are describing where your links go, you also need to describe what the image is. Remember, machines will be reading this. So, in that case, you want it to be something that is absolutely descriptive. Not just the title, but that the alt text itself, the alternate text, is descriptive. As a good thing to remember, search engines do see these words, and while it may not help page rank factors, if somebody's on Google image searches, it could help show up there. Likewise, put hashtags in here, because whatever you write as your alt text descriptive is what's going to be the default when somebody clicks on pin this in Pinterest. It will show up, and this is the default caption for in Pinterest, so use those hashtags. Next, you want to configure your categories and your tags within the blog posts. Categories are actually clickable links, like yoursite.com/category/name of category. So if it were on my site, I might have courtneyengel.com/social-media/ and then there we go. So you see the category part will actively work. You could click links to go to just the categories. So you could stick that into your navigation bar. You could also turn it on so that it is a widget on the sidebar of your site. You'll see that I have different categories that I blog about, and those are the areas of focus within my business. So I actually use those as category names, and they do show up in search results. So if somebody is searching for something about mobile marketing, they might see my courtneyengel.com/category/mobile-marketing as a blog topic. When you're writing those posts, do check the box that you see on the top right that tells you which category you want to assign this to. You can edit your categories just simply by going to Posts and then Categories. Likewise, there are tags. Tags are a little bit different than categories. You could still get to yoursite.com/tag/ whatever it is. These are more specific. So if I have a category called social media, a tag I would use might be Google Plus or Facebook. It's something more specific than the general category. People can go to /tag/ whatever it is and see everything with that tag in there. To edit those, you go to posts and then tags, and you can see a list of all the ones that you've used. When you are writing a blog post, on the lower right side there, you see a little preview box that shows up on the post editor, and that's where you add your tags in. You could also click on the choose from the most used and add all of those as well. This is pretty helpful, more so when people are searching your website. These are not the same as meta keywords, although if you're using Yoast's WordPress SEO plugin, it will work that way. So you can turn it on so that they are meta keywords if you still want to use those. People used to stuff all of those meta keywords into the beginning of their HTML files as a way of getting into search results. It may or may not actively help you. Next up, you have excerpts. Excerpts can display, if I were on my site like CourtneyEngle.com/blog, and I see these little previews, they are excerpts. Excerpts do accept HTML. So if you're writing an excerpt, excerpts are normally the first couple lines of whatever you write your post about. But if you want it to say something different, maybe the first couple lines are not the best spot for an excerpt, then go ahead, write your own excerpt in here. If you do not know HTML by hand, draft it as a post, and then inside of a post editor, draft it in a separate post, copy it once you put that HTML in. So go highlight the thing that you want to have a link on and put it in here. That always will work too. So that's an excerpt. Add in a featured image. You'll see that in that little preview of a post that I have a thumbnail listed there. And that thumbnail, I do my thumbnails simply based on different categories. I do that based on the plugin called Default Thumbnail Plus. You could have a different thumbnail for every post that you write, or you could say, if it is a specific category, use this same thumbnail over and over. So you'll see on the right side of the post editor, set featured image. You could add it there, or if you want to test out the Default Thumbnail Plus plugin, you could check that out. Likewise, I have a client that is a real estate agent, and they need to have on the front page of their website a featured image, because otherwise their theme just kind of breaks. Meaning that the front page of their real estate theme, which is an AgentPress theme, is a display of all the houses that they have listed. They need to actually set a featured image, and sometimes they forget that they need that type of a thing. If they don't have a featured image there, then their front page of their site has like a weird blank box in it with an X. So go set a require featured image. There's a plugin that will help you with that, if that applies. Again, you might not need either of these plugins, but if you do, they're cool, they work, they're related. Check them out. After you've got the basics of writing a post done, next up you want to do is check, does this thing work on mobile? If so, you need to consider what things in mobile do you need. We have responsive, a standalone site, a landing page, or an app. With a responsive site, that means that everything adjusts as it should everywhere across your website. A mobile standalone site is m.yoursite.com. The danger with that is that you could have duplicate content. So if you're making a second version of your site as an m. site, then you might have some duplicate content. That means that Google could flag you and your website would rank a lot lower. So just be careful when you're doing m. sites that you really set those links in correctly and that everything works. You're essentially making a secondary version of your site, and then you'll want to tell Google to look at one or the other, but not at both. A landing page is different in that you might strip away a lot of the menus, meaning the navigation menu. A place where this would be good is if you are sending out a QR code. Maybe you're a business owner and you've got a storefront window and you put a QR code there for the hours of operation or a click to call kind of a deal. You don't need people to go to everywhere else on your site. You've got one action for them. That's where you take away the navigation menu. A mobile landing page is just like any other kind of a sales landing page that you have in a website. So you want it to be distraction-free and limited. This is something you want to be careful. I've got a client that had their site was always redirecting to a mobile landing page. The problem is if they shared their link to Facebook or to maybe their email newsletter, and people are scanning those things mostly on their mobile devices now, they clicked on the link to load the site. read that particular blog post that was shared, and they got redirected to the mobile landing page every single time. So the target audience they didn't think was on mobile, but surprisingly, the people that were clicking on these links were frustrated beyond belief because all it did was take them to a mobile landing page and not the thing they clicked on to read. So that's a problem. And then lastly, there are apps. You need to decide if your app is beyond the scope of just loading up your website in a mobile browser. If that's your goal, you could teach people how to bookmark it so it looks like an app and it just launches a browser on their mobile phone. But if you need an app you could do with a couple different options. For that, I would check out apppresser.com. That's a new one that will use WordPress underneath it and build an app out of it. So apppresser.com is a pretty cool one to check out. But if you need some of the solutions for these other things, you need to think about before you build your site, is my site needing to be responsive? Do I want it to be responsive? Some Genesis themes are, some are not. I actually like using the Headway framework. Genesis is kind of one solution where you've got this framework underneath and people sell child themes, templates that are done for that particular framework. It's a blank framework originally and you could customize it to your heart's content. I like using Headway. Headway, everything's mobile responsive out of the box. Genesis, it really depends upon who made the child theme. If you've got a website that the client is ideally not ready to convert over, they don't want to spend the big bucks on the whole theme, for them I start looking at WP Touch Pro. There is a free version of this. I don't like it very much, but the pro version's pretty good and it's highly customizable. So that real estate agent that's using AgentPress that's not yet mobile responsive, I stuck WP Touch Pro in there because they weren't ready for the full budget of redoing their entire website and overhauling everything to be mobile responsive. So WP Touch Pro, good enough. If we're a professional client, that works. If you're just a hobby blogger and you're using 2011, 2012, or 2013 WordPress themes, check out JetPack. Inside of it, there is a mobile adjustment, basically, that's done. So WP Touch Pro and JetPack, to be clear, are both plugins that will, if you enable inside of JetPack the ability to turn on mobile, or if you're just using WP Touch Pro, both of them are a plugin that acts like a mobile theme. That said, there are other factors to consider inside of mobile. You need to test your website. Get into the stores, just like I suggested when you're testing the browsers. Go to the store and double check, does this thing work on all the devices? I'm in an iOS household. We've got iPhone 4S's, and if I wanted to see what my site looks like on Samsung, I would have to go find a Samsung phone or any other kind of Android phone. But if it's the middle of the night and I can't get to something, mobilephoneemulator.com will give you a rough idea. A real quick and dirty solution is just shrink your browser. Make it tall and skinny, and you'll see, without the page breaks, approximately what your site would look like. It's not always true, but it's close, so check it out. Also dealing with mobile, if you're in areas like I am with 3G or even lower resolution than that, you want your images to load quickly. There are a few ways to do this. When you're in Photoshop, you do a file, save as, make it a JPEG that is maximum resolution with progressive scanning enabled. Translation being, make it so that your image will eliminate extra colors that it doesn't need inside of it. So it knows how to scale it and adjust sizes and all of that pretty well. Then you also can do something to turn on inside of JetPack is Photon. It is a CDN, a content delivery network. Essentially, it takes the image from your site and saves a cached copy on servers across the globe. That means that if somebody in Australia is looking at your site, then the image would load faster. If you're hosting in, say, Miami, and they're in Sydney, well, you don't want them to have to look at the servers in Miami. Maybe there's a cached version of that image on the server in Sydney. So turn on Photon, that will help save that information. Just beware that if you're using multiple CDNs, that could be a conflict. So know before you just do it. Last up, I like the plugin Smush It. Smush It will reduce the image file sizes. This was made by Yahoo. It's taken on by WPMU. Smush It strips out unnecessary information and reduces the file size to the maximum that you really need on your site. So Smush It is a great plugin. Check that one out. Next up are the links in your site click to call. Click to call links mean that you could actually set a link that when somebody clicks on your phone number, it will automatically call up and say, do you want to start dialing? You always need to use the international code when you're doing this one, although you don't need it to display. So if you're saying that you're calling from the 555 area code, you still need the +1 in front of it, but you don't have to display that in the actual way that the link works. The same thing holds true for SMS messages. You could send out text messages where you're default calling up the SMS texting browser. Likewise, I like to make the address on websites link to Google Maps and force it open into a new window, just to be a target blank if you're dealing with links. The reason I do this, if somebody wants to drive to your location, if they're on Android, no big deal. It will pull up the correct navigation system for them. If they're on iPhone, it may or may not get them to where they need to be, and they may or may not have other map options on their phone besides the Apple Maps. Therefore, I always do it through Google Maps. I pull up that link, I hyperlink the address on their website to Google Maps. I also use AddThis for mobile sites. AddThis Smart Layers. While I like that JetPack does have these sharing tools in their site, it's not great for thumbs on a website. Smart Layers puts these nice big follow and share buttons at the bottom of their screen, and people can either follow your social accounts or share it out to the rest of the web. Pretty good for thumbs for sharing social media accounts. Next up, we have measuring our traffic. You may or may not know what Google Analytics does. There are lots of tutorials, and I may do some in the near future regarding how to dive deeply into Google Analytics. But it's good to set it up when the site is launched and make sure that the client is in ultimate control of it. I've had some former web developers that set it up that they were the administrator, the client decides to come to me and do business with me, and the client no longer has access to their Google Analytics account. That, to me, is just a real low blow. So what I do is that Gmail account that we set up at the beginning, I tie their Google Analytics to that, and within that, I give myself access to it. I either can log in as them, or I can set it up that it goes to my Google account, and I see it from there. So google.com/analytics, and it teaches you how people are looking at your website. With that, there's some code that they tell you. You can either embed the code, or you could get the UA dash whatever the numbers are and drop that into a plugin. The question is, do I do this as a plugin or a theme? You can put it in either way. I don't really care. A good plugin for that is Google Analyticator. Yoast makes that one, I believe. There's also a lot of themes have a spot to put scripts inside of it. Whichever thing you do, know how it is done. Whether the admin does it or the end goal client, if it's your business's website, just know, here's where my Google Analytics code is. Even if I don't understand what it means, if you ever start moving around or you start learning more or you switch your themes or you have plugin conflicts, you need to know where Google Analytics resides within your website. Other than that, just take your pick. There are people that have varying opinions. Just pick one and go. Likewise, there's Webmaster Tools. Analytics tells you how people are moving in your site. Webmaster Tools is saying, Google, here's a blueprint to everything on my site. It's called a sitemap. You could get a sitemap.xml file to give to Webmaster Tools by turning it on inside of Yoast's WordPress SEO plugin. If you go to the SEO plugin on the left-hand side, you'll see XML sitemaps. You right-click on that sitemap, or you could click and open it in a new link. And when you're going into Google Webmaster Tools, you give that particular link to Webmaster Tools. You'll need to verify that you are using the correct site. So it will ask you to walk through a whole process. At the tail end of it, they say, here's the meta value to claim. I want you to put this into your site. So the correct place to do that, I believe, is inside of WordPress SEO plugin by Yoast, inside of the Webmaster Tools. Likewise, you could do the same thing for Bing and for Alexa if you care about Alexa. Bing, it's Microsoft search engine, and it also powers Yahoo. So it's still good to go claim those things. So get that information put together, and then you could also test out. If you don't want to use Yoast's, then Google Publisher, which is owned by Google, has a plugin there as well. So you get the meta value, you stick it in your site, and then you go back to Webmaster Tools and you say, hey, I put that code in my site. Please check that it's there. They do. They advise that you claim your site still with and without the www. Because if you don't claim it both ways, then you could be duplicate ranking, and that could lead to penalties. Yikes. So according to this support forum ticket on Google's system, claim it with and without the dubs, and then you'll want to know whichever way that you prefer to do it is fine. Specify in Webmaster Tools which way you're doing it, and then inside of your website address, set it correctly. So either go and put the W's in or go and take them out. In the world of social media and Twitter and trying to be abbreviated, I take them out. Know what you type here very, very carefully before you type it. if you type something wrong, you could really mess your system up. And then you have to go to something on your server called myphpadmin, and it looks like an Access database but less pretty, and you have to fix it in that. So if you don't know what you're doing with that, be very, very careful how you fix it here. Likewise, go claim it on Bing. Bing will tell you a lot of the same information. Go put it in your Webmaster Tools setting again. Once that's done, I move on to authorship. Authorship is who wrote this post, and will a little preview of them show up in a Google search result. And you'll see here is one on the right-hand side that has my little profile photo listed there. To get that to show up, we go to SEO Tools again, WordPress SEO by Yoast, go to Social, go to the Google Plus tab, and drop in the link to your Google Plus profile. While there, you could also put in the link to your Google Plus business page for the next thing we do, which is claiming publisher. So, first up, author deals with who wrote it, publisher is the business brand. That said, you could test and see if yours is working by going to the Webmaster Tools Rich Snippets, or the Structured Data Testing tool is what they refer to it as on the site. So go there, and you have to put in a link that is not just the top of your website, meaning not just yoursite.com, but a link to the full thing. Yoursite.com doesn't really know what to do with that as the preview, but a link to an actual article will tell you once you have this all set up if it's working or not. I should remember to tell you here that your Google Plus profile should link back to the sites you contribute to, so you'll need to make sure that you're doing that as well. To do something like that, you can also go into, under the left-hand side, General, the users of your site. You go to your profile and put in your Google Plus link to your personal profile right there. And over in Google Plus, you say, I'm a contributor too, and you put all the sites that you write blog posts, WordPress websites that you're writing blog posts to, or other systems, doesn't matter, but that's where you contribute to. You could also add in a way to claim some of that is if you are using the WordPress Plugins fancier author box, which puts a little preview box at the bottom of a post, that will help you claim it too. You don't need it, but it's nice if you've got a site running many authors to get them to do it that way. Publisher, we said, was similar to author. With publisher, you go to social, you put in your publisher page. Then when it's all verified and you say, here's a link to the sites that I write to, you see on the bottom left. Then the next thing you could see is in a Google search result, you see publisher listed there on the right under recent posts, and your blog post could start showing up there as well. So that's publisher links. That will put in the preview to your business page listed there. Worth noting, do claim your Google and Bing places. They're very similar to creating a page and all of that. They're a little bit different, but you can claim both of them distinguished. And that's going to help make sure your author hours, your business hours are exactly identical across both systems. So whatever time that you are open and closed, whatever payments you accept, whatever your address is, needs to be the same across all the systems on your website and elsewhere. Other kinds of tools that you can start using in tracking what's happening onto your site. Those are Webmaster Tools and Analytics. Come and check on at least once a week, I would say. You could get into it a lot more often, but once a week will give you a picture if something's broken. You could also test out Facebook Insights. That's traffic from Facebook that goes to your website. That will tell you a little bit more sometimes than Google Analytics will. Google Analytics will say they came from Facebook. Insights will tell you a little bit more on demographics and how much reach you got inside of Facebook. Likewise, you could go into Twitter Analytics, and it will tell you something similar. To get there, you go to ads.twitter.com. Then you'll see Analytics and Websites. So this will tell you the analytics of the traffic that came to your website because they clicked on a link on Twitter. Pinterest has something similar available as well. You set up your Pinterest account. You go to Create Analytics, which is pinterest.com/source, and then /yourdomainname.com/analytics. You can click on your profile icon, go to analytics, and set it up from there. It does need to be a verified account. You'll go to your Pinterest personal profile to verify that account. But this is analytics of what's happening on your website from Pinterest and what they're doing, how much reach they're getting inside of Pinterest. So if that applies to your business, consider using it if your content's Pinterest worthy. AddThis I mentioned earlier for the Smart Layers plugin. When you have an account with AddThis, and again, this is free to do, you could see very specifically how much things were shared on your site, how many times people clicked, how many times they started following you because it's something you did on your site. I like just dropping in AddThis Smart Layers to get some of this, but you could set up an account. Smart Layers will work without an account, but with an account, you get all the data. You get lots of analytics. So that's it on measuring with social media. A last bit of how to measure some other kind of content is if you are using JetPack. JetPack does have WordPress site stats. To get there, you go to, on the left-hand side under the JetPack plugin, you go to Site Stats. Here are the stats going on your website. They'll tell you what things today people are clicking on. I feel like it gives you a little bit of information that is more current than Google Analytics for a wider area. Google Analytics does have a show me what's happening on my page at this exact moment, whereas JetPack will say within the past couple hours what was happening. Yesterday what was happening. Analytics can take a little bit to get there. They have a hard time telling you all the search engine terms, but you can get some of that inside of this as well. And it's going to tell you where some of your traffic was coming from. So JetPack Site Stats is a tool available. You can just go and configure and turn that on. You do need to have a WordPress.com account for this feature to work. That's why we, even though our site's not being hosted with WordPress.com, still why we set up a WordPress.com account. You'll see that little black bar in your address bar at the top when you're logged in as an administrator that shows you the site stats of the past 30 days as well. So that's pretty cool. Next up, we've got stats on our site. We've got how it looks in browsers. We've got some of the social stuff configured. The next thing I look at is snippets on the site. So if we are hosting events at our business, then we can go into the schema code. Schema is ways that different search engines can see kind of more specific information on your site. They'll know if you are a local business, if you have events, if you are a sports industry and your team has won or lost, if you are rating and reviewing products, movies, TV shows. They'll know if this is a news-based website. There are a lot of different types of schema code. All the different major players in browsers and in search engines, which are very intertwined, used to all have their own markup code that would display things differently. They all got together and said, let's just simplify this for developers and call it Schema. Schema.org is that conglomeration. There is a link to all of every bit of every kind of schema code that you could use, as well as a little bit further of an explanation there inside of Google's support for webmasters. So to get some of these things to show up on your site, you want to go to the structured data testing tool yet again, and I have a link below to test that. And inside of that, you put in, again, a link to the exact page on your site that you think should be displaying something that is schema related. So an events calendar, you can see that I've got that displaying there, and that will tell me if it's working or not working in search results. So if somebody searches for something that should show up, this is an example that yes, indeed, it is showing up as it should. To get that to work on your site, you have a couple of options. With WordPress, you could either do it by plugins, or you could go to Google and tell it to do the structured data markup helper. There's a link listed below, and what you do is you select which thing is this that should be displaying, and it will walk you through parts of your site, and you tell the structured data markup helper tool which thing this is. Is this a local business? Is this a book review, an event, etc.? And it will help you mark up and put that information in as it should be. The other option is to do it by plugins. The right plugin can really help you go a long way. Sometimes it's easier to do it based on plugins than it is based on going through that helper tool. So some plugins that will do some of this is the all-in-one rich snippets schema.org testing tool. So here we see a link to that one. That will mark up everything that it knows how to understand. There's also things like calendar tools. If you're using the events calendar, there is a free and a pro version. That automatically includes it. Customer reviews is another plugin that will include it. And Yoast makes some of this possible in terms of how later it gets shared to social media. There's a way that will work too. Likewise, with e-commerce, you want to get ratings and reviews in there. WooCommerce has it built in if you're using that. You'll want to go out to Google Merchants and claim that you are a business that has products. And here's the keys to where everything is on my site, and know that people can rate and review and show up in Google for that being a product as well. Next up is the Facebook Open Graph, and that's kind of like schema code and rich snippets, but a little bit different. Facebook Open Graph is that little preview that gets displayed about your site onto social media. So if I were to go to, again, Yoast's WordPress SEO tool and turn on the Add Facebook Open Graph metadata. That will determine what gets shared out to Facebook anywhere and everywhere based on what content I have on my website. If something gets shared and it shouldn't be, or you should fix it, or anything like that, you could go to the developer's debug tool and fix it. But you'll see here on the right hand side, if I'm writing a post inside of WordPress and I go to the post editor, there's a tab called social, and you could specify when somebody shares this article to Facebook or Google Plus what you want the description to be and what image you want it to display. So maybe whatever you picked as your featured image is not the image that would work best for when it gets shared. So for me, I have images on mine that might be like an author gravatar. Somebody's profile picture displays there. Every time an article gets shared, then their photo goes with it. What if instead of their photo, you wanted something else to go out? There are times where that could work, so you could specify inside of WordPress SEO by Yoast what your description is that you want listed there. Google Plus also ties into that same area as well. I should mention, with all my love for WordPress SEO on blog posts, there are a few things to know. At the bottom, every time you write a post, you need to fill this information in. So you put your focus keywords in, your SEO title, your meta description, your meta keywords if you want to override what normally is showing up there. And then after you save the article, you could get it to analyze it. The top right displays what that analysis looks like. More green is better. Less green is worse. You'll see that there is when I hit publish or update or save draft, there's a little SEO check that's listed there as well. That just brings you back to this page analysis. And if you're looking at all posts, there's a little column that will likewise display how SEO friendly that post is or not. Moving on to rich pins. Rich pins are if you're writing a blog, a website, whatever, using WordPress, and you've got a recipe in there. The Pinterest Rich Pins is something that's only a couple months old. What it does is it will display how that recipe looks when it is pinned on Pinterest. So it actually puts part of the recipe onto a pin on Pinterest. To get that feature to work, check out the ABG Rich Pins plugin, and you could also likewise read up some more on the Rich Pins Validator to test that yours is working over on Pinterest's website. So you want to add a plugin in that helps Pinterest know what's going on your site. Finally, we move into performance, backups, and security. It's a good thing to benchmark how fast is this website working and what things are working or broken on the site and what do I need to do to fix it. The first thing I always check is tools.pingdom.com/FPT, not FTP, FPT. That will actually tell you how well your site performs. A good grade will be higher, up to the grade score of 100. It will tell you your site load time, your average page size, if you need to fix any of those things. If you want to test it on page speed for mobile, then Google's got a good tool for that one, and you'll see the link listed below. You can get out to all of that. Other performance issues that you could have, you could test out and see, do you have all the legalese information on your site? That's a good tool for that is Freelance WP. They've got a testing tool there for WordPress Site Scanner. And what that will do is it will tell you, does it load quickly? Do you have a current version of your site? What themes are you using? Do you have themes that you should be deleting because you're not using them anymore? Is it SEO ready? Do you have all the legal stuff like your disclaimer and your policy and your privacy statements and all that on there? And how clean is your code and how well is it performing? So there we see that the site is performing with a score of 73. There's some room to improve. You would know to then go and fix those issues. I also look for broken links. If you have a lot of broken links, Google thinks that maybe you don't pay attention to what's happening with your website anymore, and or maybe you're a spammer or you're linking to spammers and then they don't like you. So make sure you don't have any broken links. You could go to a broken link checker to get that done. I like the one from w3.org listed below. Get a good idea of how many backlinks you have coming to your site. The more backlinks, the higher possibly that you could stand in page rank. So a good backlink checker is Bleco. Bleco is a competing search engine to Google. You could go to Bleco and search for link : your website address, and it will tell you how many backlinks that it has found so far. So go test out how many backlinks you have, write the number down, and then aim to get more from better websites in the future. You could check out your domain rank, and domain rank factors in a lot of things. This is from the fine folks over at Moz, and what they do with Open Site Explorer is tell you all the different things that are determining your domain authority, how high you stand, tells you your page authority, how many days ago did people discover this page, how many links are on it. Again, look through the results and see if you need to fix things and add some things. You can test too if you've got duplicate content. Remember I said when we were looking at a mobile site versus a full site, if you've got duplicate content, that means that Google can penalize you for having the same thing twice. You can fix some of this inside of WordPress SEO tools. There's some great tutorials on how to clean that all up, but just first find out, do I have duplicate content? If I do, then I need to go clear it out because that could be a real problem. Scan your site for viruses. I like Securi for that, and you can get there with the link listed below. This will tell you if you've got any malicious stuff happening inside of your website, and if you're really in a jam and something's broken, they'll even help you fix it for a small arm and a leg. Or actually, I'll say that again, it's a really good service. Go check them out. Lastly, we want to make sure we've got things with the backups and the databases going correctly. So you need to back up your content. I run a nightly backup of content. That means that all my posts get backed up nightly. Anything that is new gets added to that backup. I do a full site backup at least once a month, sometimes up to once a week. Full site means back up the themes, any media that they've uploaded. If you know what you're doing with FTP access to your server, then this is everything that resides under WP content. Most backup systems do not back up what's in WP-content. This backup that I'm referring to should back up everything. Some plugins do this, like WordPress Backup to Dropbox, or if you pay for Backup Buddy, that will do it. I do this using Managed WP, which is a solution for developers that will let us maintain all of our client websites. Just know that your host can do some backups, and you may or may not still lose that. If you are in the process of moving from one host to another host, what's in WP-content, you really need to make sure you've got, along with the actual what you wrote in a post. You need both of those things backed up. Database cleanup looks like you could go to WP-optimize. This gets rid of post revisions, spam, scam kind of material, any sort of unused plugins or themes you want to clear out, and also empty the trash can. Just because you put it in the trash can doesn't mean the garbage man came to get it, so you need to go empty the trash can. All of these extra things clutter up your database and make your site load slower, so fix that one up. Also dealing with site speed, you can add in total cache. W3 total cache is a good one. Caching is to say somebody visited my website and remember it in their browser and load from their browser unless I've made a change. Caching something just again speeds up how quickly it works. It saves kind of to the server level, saying somebody from this IP address looks at your site and they should be able to remember most of what your site looks like. Just update them on the new stuff. That's what caching does. You can also look at more of a CDN than just your images. So again, a CDN, it's kind of mirroring what your cache is to servers that are more located near the people that you're trying to reach. So if I were trying to reach, let's say my server is in Miami, and I've got somebody that's in Santiago, Chile, and another person in Sydney that want to see my site, instead of their computer going all the way back to my server in Miami, let's say that there is a server that is in the next town over or closer to them. This puts kind of a cached version of all of that there. A really good post on explaining why you might need a CDN is over on WPBeginner.com. Max CDN is a common one that I've seen a lot of WordPress people using, and there's a link to them as well. That is a fee depending on how much traffic you have. So finally, if you've got any questions, if this was a little bit much, I'll be doing some videos that break this out one by one at a time. But I wanted to quickly post this video because my talk at WordCamp that should have had all this content ran into some snags and technical difficulties, and it really just wasn't working. But you can find me over at CourtneyEngle.com and SimpleLocalBusiness.com. Simple Local Business is going to be launching in the near future as a training zone for especially my clients, but small and local business owners that really just need to go slowly through a lot of what I covered, as well as a lot of other social media. That said, this has been a great fun explaining to you all of the things that I look at and making sure that a website really is primed and ready to go.